This weekend here in Devon, up in London, around the UK, Europe and the world, there are a lot of people thinking about the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire, their families and friends. Their families, friends, people who live in similar tower blocks and the public at large have questions. We're making this video today because as details have emerged about the building that alarmed us, we want to answer two of those questions now because the government isn't. Theresa May's announced a public inquiry into the fire. A public inquiry, however suspiciously quickly it was announced, won't provide answers quickly. An inquest over which the government would have no control would provide better answers. The scale of this tragedy demands an inquest. An inquest jury can demand real evidence and reach a narrative verdict as to why and how this horrific event took place. However, an inquest still wouldn't provide any answers for some time. The two questions we're going to answer are: 1, why did the Grenfell Tower burn so quickly? And 2, how wasn't the tower adequately retrofitted with appropriate fire safety measures when it was having a £10 million refurbishment last year? We're going to do a simple scientific experiment and a simple analysis of statements and voting records. Watch this, you decide for yourself why and how. Here we're conducting a flammability test on various materials. First up, we have a piece of polyethylene foam. The cladding on Grenfell Tower was made of ACM, aluminium composite material, which is lightweight aluminium sheeting around a core of polyethylene foam. You might be more familiar with polyethylene foam in terms of the foam that comes in your trampoline pads. We've applied a source of ignition to the foam, taken it away, and it's burning independently. It's melting as it burns, which in the case of a tower will spread the fire down. It's burning intensely, in part fed by the air bubbles within it. This would spread a fire up. Omnis Exteriors, who made the Reynobond PE cladding used on Grenfell Tower, also make Reynobond FR. FR stands for fire resistant. The fire resistant version only costs £2 per square metre more than the PE non-fire resistant version. We're adults conducting this experiment on a well-ventilated pavement. Nobody try this at home, the fumes are horrible. Next up, aluminium sheeting itself. Aluminium isn't flammable. The smoke and steam you can see coming from this can is part from the paint and part from what's left of the drink. Lightweight aluminium sheeting is much thicker than the less than 1/10 of a millimetre that you get on a drinks can. However, it's aluminium. It has a low melting point, and like this can, it will distort and fail under high temperatures. In the case of the cladding, this bending and gapping will expose the flammable core. The bending of metal sheet exposing a core that's already been found to be a problem in the case of tower block windows, like those in Lacanau House, which had a serious fire. The windows there had a core of plywood and polystyrene. Now, we're not going to test plywood. The clue of the result of that is in the word wood. This polystyrene block is just like the polyethylene foam. It burns independently once the source of ignition is removed. It burns intensely, melts, fed by the air inside and outside, giving off toxic fumes in the process. As with the polyethylene foam, this would spread a fire down with the melting and up with the intensity. Window frames made in this way will expose their core once the metal sheet exterior becomes hot enough to bend and distort. When renovating my flat, I was advised by my fireman friend to stuff the floors and walls and ceiling void with earth wool. This next material we're testing is earth wool. As you can see, we're applying a source of ignition to it and it's charring into a glassy mess. Applying the source of ignition again, it won't catch fire. It's made of recycled glass bottles, which, in case you're not aware, is made of silica sand, which itself isn't flammable. Fire chiefs in London have made it abundantly clear they wanted mineral materials like this used in cladding panels. Those firemen have been thus far ignored. Firemen who have to attend these fires should have a right to sign off on materials used in their construction at the specification and procurement stage of these projects, whether it's construction from the ground up or renovation. They should have been consulted by Ryden Maintenance, who conducted the refurbishment of Grenfell Tower. The aviation industry has the highest safety standards. Every material that goes into a plane gets a rigorous flammability test, even materials where it's obvious they won't burn, like stone. If someone wants to install a marble-clad bathroom and cocktail bar in a luxury jet, a piece of that marble gets blowtorched just the same. German companies have been banned from using cladding like Reynobond PE on buildings higher than 22 metres since the 80s. In the US, building codes state that you can't use these non-flame retardant panels on any building over 15 metres. You might wonder why we're burning a milk bottle here. The milk bottle's made of PET, polyethylene terephthalate, related to polyethylene foam. Milk and Coke bottles to you and me. They're also used, recycled, chipped up, coloured and moulded to make wood-look panels used on other, lower-level local authority buildings. This plastic, in case you're not aware, is originally made from oil. It still contains the hydrocarbon energy of its original ingredients, waiting to be released in combustion. As you can see, it burns by itself for some time. The fumes are toxic, and as you can also see from the shimmer haze on the pavement, the heat is intense. Don't wrap buildings with fuel. To answer our second question, how were fire safety measures not retrofitted to Grenfell Tower during the £10 million refurbishment? We're going to look at the voting records and attitudes of the people responsible, the government and the local council. Last year, the Housing and Planning Bill was put through Parliament by the Conservative Party. The Labour Party proposed an amendment that simply required landlords to make their properties safe and fit for human habitation. 312 Conservative MPs voted down that amendment, claiming the new law would result in unnecessary regulation. 71 of those Conservative MPs are on the register of members' interests as being private landlords themselves. This is the list of those 71 MPs. See if your MP's on there. The vast majority, if not all, of the 312 Conservative MPs that voted against the amendment to protect tenants themselves own their own houses. Kensington and Chelsea Council is led by the Conservative Nick Paget-Brown, who falsely claimed whilst being interrogated by Kirsty Walk on Newsnight that there was a consensus among the residents of Grenfell Tower that they didn't want a sprinkler system retrofitted as it would be too obstructive and intrusive. Residents had been voicing their concerns about fire safety for years. The TMO had raised fire safety with the council on multiple occasions. Kensington and Chelsea is some of the most expensive real estate on planet Earth. How Grenfell Tower looked from the outside to its ultra-wealthy neighbours seems to have been a more important consideration for the council than how safe it was on the inside for its tenants. Why wasn't 1/50th of the budget, i.e. £200,000, spent on sprinklers? More fire-retardant cladding would have only cost a few £1,000s more. At 24 stories, Grenfell Tower is considerably taller than 40 feet. If those responsible for tenants don't care about them, those tenants aren't safe. Look at this voting record. Watch the Newsnight interview. Science is objective. Politics is subjective. Ask yourself if you think this government or Kensington and Chelsea Council care about tenants in London and beyond. On this question, please draw your own conclusions. To the families and friends of the victims of the fire, we send you the biggest of Devonshire hugs.